My mom asked me who I wanted to marry. This time, I didn't choose Simon Hughes. Instead, I chose his younger uncle, Daniel Hughes. Her reaction was instant, her gaze sharp and full of disbelief, like I just slapped her across the face. After all, everyone in the city knew Simon and I were inseparable, practically joined at the hip since childhood. For 10 years, I chased him and made it clear I wouldn't marry anyone else. But that was the old me, the version of myself that no longer existed. A bitter smile tugged at my lips as memories of my past life, before I was reborn, flooded my mind. In that life, after Simon and I married, I came to a heartbreaking realization. He'd never once laid a finger on me. At first, I told myself it was personal, maybe it was just something he couldn't help. I made excuses for him and tried to convince myself it didn't matter. But then, on our golden wedding anniversary, I walked into a room I'd never seen before. It was locked away, hidden, and filled with photos of my cousin. That's when it hit me. It wasn't that Simon was asexual. He just didn't love me. Now, in this second life, I was done wasting time on someone who would never love me in return. I decided to let them be together, once and for all. But as I walked down the aisle toward Daniel, Simon's face turned pale, and he completely lost control. 3 days after my official engagement to Simon Hughes, I ran into him at a party. Naturally, his friends spotted me, and, of course, they couldn't resist. They were already laughing, clearly having a field day at my expense. "Simon, look who it is, your little shadow is here again," one of them called out with a grin. "Bianca, you're already engaged to Simon, and yet you're still hanging around him? Shouldn't you be letting the poor guy enjoy his own party before you tie him down?" Another one chimed in. When Simon saw me, his annoyance was pretty much written all over his face. "Bianca," he spat, "are you really this desperate to get married to me? You didn't even bother getting my approval before locking down this engagement. And now the whole damn city's talking about it. You've got some nerve." His disgust hit me like a punch in the gut. I had to take a deep breath and steady myself before I said anything back. "It didn't need your approval. I'm not marrying you." The room burst into laughter. Simon's friends practically doubled over. They laughed so hard. Of course, they couldn't resist piling on. "Simon," one of them yelled, "better watch out. Your fiancé is about to pull another stunt to get your attention." Simon just shook his head, looking more and more annoyed. "Bianca, now you're trying to play hard to get?" I couldn't help but smirk. "With the Hughes family? If I'm not marrying you, who else will marry you?" He leaned in closer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let's not forget, you've been saying since we were kids that you'd marry me. The whole city already thinks you're mine." Then, he whispered, "I'll let this engagement slide, but don't forget, yeah, I can give you a big wedding, but the marriage license? That's only for the one I actually want to marry." I froze. In my past life, Simon had followed through with his family's plans at this exact moment, and we'd gotten our marriage registered. Could it be that he had been reborn, too? Before I could even process what was happening, my cousin Audrey appeared at the party. The moment she spotted me standing next to Simon, her face twisted in distress, and tears began to spill from her eyes. "Bianca, Simon, I heard you're getting married soon. I didn't bring a gift, but I wish you both all the happiness in the world." She stammered, her voice breaking every word. Before she could finish, Audrey turned and bolted, sobbing as she ran off. "Look at what you've done, Bianca," Simon muttered under his breath, giving me a furious glare before rushing after her without another word. When they came back, their fingers were locked together, tight as ever. Audrey's lips were swollen and red, and there was a hickey on Simon's neck. The whole room was watching, waiting to see what I'd do. In my previous life, if I saw another woman getting too close to Simon, I'd make a scene to make sure everyone knew I was still his. Simon stepped forward, positioning Audrey behind him like some kind of shield, his face wearing this weird, expectant expression. But I didn't give him the reaction he was clearly hoping for. Minutes passed, and his smug little face started to falter. Then, he sneered, "Well, look at that. At least you've grown up a little. No screaming or throwing a fit like you used to." I didn't even dignify his jab with a response. As the party wound down and we all started heading toward the door, Simon stopped me in my tracks. "It's late, and it's not safe. I'll give you a ride," he said. Since the ride was free and I wasn't about to walk home, I didn't argue. I climbed into the back seat, but Simon was faster than me. He blocked the front passenger seat and said, "You're sitting in the back." With that, he gently helped Audrey into the front seat, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I'm sorry, Bianca," Audrey said with faint concern. "Simon's just being protective. He's afraid I'll get carsick." I didn't say anything. I just slid into the back seat, exactly where I'd planned to sit in the first place. The whole ride home was just Simon and Audrey talking and laughing like they were the only two people on the planet. At a red light, Audrey teased Simon, asking him to help her with some lip balm. They exchanged this look, and I swear, the tension in the air thickened. Suddenly, Simon whipped his head toward the rearview mirror like he just remembered I was in the car. When his eyes met mine, and I pointedly stared out the window, trying to ignore them, his expression faltered for a moment. For a moment, I saw raw anger flash across his face. Then, before I could even process it, he slammed his foot down on the gas pedal. When we pulled up to my place, Simon did something I really wasn't expecting. He grabbed my arm again. "All right, enough with the act," he said, his tone dismissive. "Don't pretend like you don't care. It's beneath you." With that, he shoved a bracelet into my hand. "This is your engagement gift from me," he added, his voice dripping with condescension. "As long as you stay in line, I'll throw you a wedding. At least, on paper, everyone will think you're my wife." I glanced up at him, locking eyes. "And who exactly are you planning to marry? Audrey?" Simon's face twisted with rage, but there was something almost smug underneath it, as if he was enjoying the chaos he was causing. "I knew it. You've been pretending the whole time," he sneered. "Listen up, don't you dare breathe a word of this to anyone in either of our families. My relationship with Audrey is none of your business. She's kind and fragile, nothing like your petty little schemes." His voice dropped low, almost a warning. "If you ever hurt her, don't think for a second I'll still go through with this wedding." I couldn't help but laugh. He was too much of a coward to be honest with the Hughes family, yet somehow, I was the one painted as the villain in all of this. I didn't say another word. I just turned on my heel and walked into my apartment, the weight of it all pressing down on me. The moment I stepped through the door, my phone buzzed in my hand. It was a video from Audrey. I hesitated before opening it, but when I did, there they were, Simon, gently helping Audrey fasten a necklace around her neck. The brand was unmistakable. And then it hit me, the bracelet Simon had just given me was the freebie that came with that very necklace. They were so close, their necks almost touching. And then, as the camera zoomed in, they kissed. The sound of it pierced the silence of the car, sharp, intrusive, like a slap to my chest. Bianca, Simon must have told you by now, right? After the wedding, he's going to marry me legally. Just so you know, without a legal marriage, there's no inheritance rights. Guess it's my turn to become the richest woman in Evergreen City. Audrey, she'd been reborn too. It all clicked. Even though Simon and Audrey had no connection in our past life, this time, just days into it, they were already acting like a couple. Doing all the things lovers do. It was as if they had an unspoken understanding, as if they were trying to pick up exactly where they left off. I lowered my gaze, memories of my past life flooding back. I thought about when I first married into the Hughes family. Right after the wedding, it felt like everything changed. The company started receiving a flood of partnership offers, landing new contracts left and right. Hughes Enterprises' assets skyrocketed, and before long, they had become the richest company in Los Angeles. The patriarch of the Hughes family was convinced I was the one bringing good fortune to Simon. Strangely enough, the family seemed to like me more and more with each passing day. They treated me like I was one of their own, like I truly belonged. Despite Simon's cold indifference, I honestly thought I was happy. That was until I found the photos. One afternoon, my mom came into my room with some surprising news. Daniel, Simon's younger uncle, is coming back from Europe in 5 days, she said. I froze, caught off guard. Daniel had never married in my past life, and I certainly didn't expect our arranged marriage to progress so quickly. I vaguely remembered Daniel. One thing was clear, though. He was always a good guy, almost like an older brother to me. Marrying him now felt like it would bring me more peace than tying the knot with anyone else. I wasn't sure why, but the thought of him felt right. The next morning, I was up early, working away in my studio on the design for my wedding dress. I've been sketching out my dream wedding dress since college when I studied fashion design. But every design I came up with back then had to fit Simon's tastes. He wouldn't let me use any design elements I liked, everything had to be for him. But now, I was free. Free to design the dress I loved, the one I'd actually want to wear, while marrying someone else. A few days later, I finished putting the final touches on my dress and decided to grab a coffee from the break room. That was when I saw Audrey's post on social media.